Capernaum was a major country town situated on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee, near where Peter, Andrew, James and John lived. Jesus had walked by the sea and called them to follow him, and I will make you become fishers of men. Immediately they left their nets and followed him. Now he leads them into Capernaum. We read from Mark chapter 1, verse 21. Then they went into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath he entered the synagogue and taught. And they were astonished at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Now there was a man in their synagogue with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, saying, Let us alone. What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. But Jesus rebuked him, saying, Be quiet, and come out of him. And when the unclean spirit had convulsed him and cried out with a loud voice, he came out of him. Then they were all amazed. So they questioned among themselves, saying, What is this? What new doctrine is this? For with authority he commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him. And immediately his fame spread throughout all the region around Galilee. Now as soon as they came out of the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. But Simon's wife's mother lay sick with a fever, and they told him about her at once. So he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her, and she served them. At evening, when the sun had set, they brought to him all who were sick and those who were demon-possessed, and the whole city was gathered together at the door. Then he healed many who were sick with various diseases, and cast out many demons. And he did not allow the demons to speak, because they knew him. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share these verses from Mark chapter 1, verses 21 to 34. The first two miracles that Mark reports to us are the driving out of an unclean spirit from a man who was in the synagogue, and the driving out of a fever from Simon's wife's mother as she lay sick in the house, that she might serve. The synagogue was the regular meeting place of the Jews. Regularly there was a school there, but on the Sabbath they read the Scriptures and taught the Scriptures. And so when Jesus comes to the synagogue in Capernaum, he's given the opportunity of teaching, and the people are absolutely amazed at his teaching. For generally, the scribes, as they taught, were hesitant. They simply quoted what other rabbis said. I've witnessed that for myself when I visited a synagogue in Jerusalem some years ago. But Jesus didn't talk just by quoting other people. He spoke directly. He spoke with the authority of God. And this was so completely different that it caught everyone's attention. He taught them as one having authority, as one who knew what he was talking about. He didn't have to quote somebody else. He just spoke directly to them. But there was a confrontation in the synagogue that day. There was a man there with an unclean spirit. In our modern Western society, we don't kind of acknowledge unclean spirits. But to my mind, the mental health issues that we have today, the majority of them at least, would come into the category of an unclean spirit. Something that is wrong in a person's thinking. They have been influenced by ideas that have come from outside, and they are bound by those ideas. And unless they can be freed from those ideas, they remain with distorted thinking, unrealistic thinking. Sometimes they can hear voices. Now, it seems to me to be very shallow to simply say this is a physical problem or a medical problem. But it is definitely a real problem, a problem with a person's thinking. And this man was obviously struggling with his thinking. He'd come to the synagogue. the place where he might find help, but the synagogue could not give him any help. It's only Jesus who could. And this man has incredible insight. He recognizes Jesus of Nazareth, but as one who is the Holy One of God. We sometimes wonder why some people get really angry with believers, that they will murder them, that they will yell at them, that they will object to them, particularly when you acknowledge God. This is part of the reason why there's so much anti-Semitism in the world. It is because the Jews represent God, whether they're walking in his ways or not. The fact that they exist means that God exists, else they would have ceased to exist as an identifiable group. And people oppose God. Why do they oppose God? Because the God of this world, Satan, has blinded their eyes, so they do not believe. And the only way to debunk God is to get rid of his people. And so they would destroy the Jew, and in many cases they would destroy the Christian as well. Well, in this case, the unclean spirit says, "Let us alone." He recognizes that as the Son of God, Jesus has authority over them. Jesus has the power to destroy the unclean spirit. And so he challenges Jesus. Implicitly, the spirit is acknowledging that he is in rebellion against God. But while there's forgiveness for men who sin, there is no forgiveness for angels, for evil spirits who rebel against God. Do you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. Jesus commands the unclean spirit, "Be quiet and come out of him." The testimony of unclean spirits is not helpful to God's servant. And so, rather than saying, "Yes, you're right, I am the Holy One of God," he says, "Be quiet, come out of him." And something that seems to be often characteristic is that there is a violent upheaval in a person when an unclean spirit leaves a person. They cry out, they convulse, but afterwards the man is quiet. The evil spirit has gone, and the people are absolutely amazed. Now, we don't see this kind of thing happening today. We just see many people whose mind is not functioning properly. They can't go and get a regular job and fulfill their responsibilities in society. Most of us will know several people in that category. But here, Jesus heals this man, and he is able to function as a normal person. So the question is, what is this? What new doctrine is this? For with authority he commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him. 2 comments about authority. He taught as one having authority, and he demonstrated that authority driving out the evil spirit. And so people start talking about Jesus because he is remarkable in his message and he is remarkable in his power. After synagogue, they returned to Simon and Andrew's house, James and John also there. Simon is evidently married, and his wife's mother is in the house with a fever. They tell Jesus about her, and she comes and takes her by the hand and lifts her up, and immediately the fever leaves her, and she serves them. And that evening, after sunset, many people gather at the house, sick people and demon-possessed people. Indeed, it says the whole city was gathered at the door. There was such a crowd. And he healed many who were sick with various diseases, and many who had demons. But he didn't allow the demons to speak, because they knew him. People needed to recognize Jesus not on the testimony of demons, but by his character and by the teaching that he brought. And so he refused to give demons an opportunity to identify, to honour him. The ability to heal all kinds of diseases and to drive out evil spirits shows that Jesus was a special person. He was the Son of God. He had authority that you and I do not have, and we can only seek God's mercy when we are afflicted in one way or the other.